Welcome back to the Ohio MMA Podcast. I'm David McKinney, joined today on our I shouldn't have said welcome back. This is the first episode. Josh Perreira joins me today. What's up, Josh?
How you doing, brother?
Not much, man. Doing great. I actually, before we talk about your fight, I actually just went to Hawaii for the first time. So I know you saw I was out there, man. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I don't know how you came from Hawaii to Ohio. It was hard to come back.
um, you know, uh, my life was kind of all over the place when I was younger, getting into a lot of or getting into a lot of drinking, partying, all that kind of stuff. Kind of fell off the path, and my buddy moved out here, and I helped open up a gymnastics and parkour gym. So it was a new opportunity for me to explore the mainland. Tried to get a boxing match in the Arnold. Got sick. Started working for the service industry. Started drinking again, and then ran into Matt over at Rude Dog up the road over here, and I've been here ever since. I know
Yeah.
I'll move back one day, but got some goals. Got some goals that I need to accomplish before I do that, of course.
Well, we're more than happy to have you here in Ohio and on the mainland. So you have been a fantastic addition to the scene in the state of Ohio. And you made your pro debut earlier this year. We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the fight coming up. LFA 160 in Owensboro, Kentucky, making your LFA debut, taking on Itzik Yakobov on the preliminary card. Just talk about making your LFA debut, how the opportunity came up, and the fight in general.
Uh, LFA actually contacted us the same week that we were fighting for OCL. When I was making my pro debut, they wanted me to make my debut on their card. They'd given me a couple of names, but sadly, we already were committed to OCL. And of course, I had debuted as an amateur for OCL, and I of course, I want to make my debut for those guys. But extremely excited. I'll be competing on a card with a lot of other great Ohio talent as well, and yeah, just excited, nervous, uh, everything right now, everything. I'm just gonna go out there and flow into it. I know all the nerves and everything when you're backstage, and even leading up to the fight, worrying about the weight cut, everything like that kind of gets to you. But once I make that walk, I will show up and I will do my thing.
Yeah, so I mentioned to you right before you came on. I literally, like, as you popped on, I was watching the finish of your of your last fight when you got the rear naked choke win. And I don't want to make your head too big, but I will say the way that you looked in your professional debut was seamless. It was one of the best debut performances I've ever seen, and I think from my side looking out, I think I equate that to a lot of things. I think that you were ready. We talked like a little over a year ago. You thought you were going to have your last amateur fight, and I think you maybe had a little bit of a performance that you weren't happy with, and you went back to
Yeah,
the drawing board and said, "Hey, I'm willing to take another amateur fight before I go pro." And you could definitely see that. I mean, the way that transition between striking and grappling, you actually you went for the wrestling when it was there. And in the second round, you ended up getting taken down and immediately were attacking off your back. Not a lot of fighters do that. And then you got up, immediately got another takedown of your own, and got the choke. And it was a performance that I when I look back at it, it was even more impressive than seeing it live and calling it. And just talk me through kind of what your mindset was going into that fight. You faced a really tough, veteran guy who already had 4 fights under his belt, and Greg Pittman. But talk to me about your pro day.
um, it was a emotional roller coaster. I was supposed to be making it my pro debut in October of last year, and that fight fell through. Opponent's hand broke, and the other opponent that we were supposed to get, he broke his foot or injured his foot very badly. And then I was supposed to make my debut for 247 against a very game opponent from Jackson Wink. He missed weight by a large margin. We tried to meet in the middle, but he said he didn't want to cut and started making complaints like, "Oh, you don't want to fight me because of this, dude." It's when people are put into a corner like that, they're gonna reach into their back pocket and try and think of any excuse under the sun to try and say, "Oh, he didn't want to fight me because of this, this, and this." But he wasn't honorable. Enough of that. Anyway, but for Ohio
Looking
Combat
forward.
League, yeah, absolutely. Ohio Combat League, we had a couple other opponents as well, and thankfully Greg Spearman stepped in. At first, I was like, really want to test myself against someone with a little bit more of like he is still a very game opponent, and I really appreciate him for stepping in. But I just kind of said, "Oh, you know what? Whatever." Um, yeah, trained hard. I didn't get as much sparring as I wanted to for that fight, especially, but I think my performance speaks for itself. That I was ready for anything that he threw at me. He's very, especially when he fought at 35, he was very strong. And once I started pushing him against the fence, he kind of spun me around like, "Whoa, okay, yeah, he's extremely strong, extremely strong." But uh, yeah, I felt good. I kind of felt like my gas tank was fairly good. Um, it was experimenting with different ranges, keeping to the outside of his lead foot since he was southpaw, ripping up the body with the kicks, mixing up the boxing, feinting for the takedowns, and then everything just kind of flowed into it. But I'm proud of my performance, but hindsight's 2020. I could have done so many things different, and uh, yeah, just I'm proud of myself, but I could have done better.
And that's amazing to see. I mean, looking at it and watching it, I've seen a lot of fights, and like I said, that was one of the best fights. And I do like that you don't rest on your laurels, and you say, hey, there's still stuff that can do better. I know you got taken down, stuff like that, but definitely can see the building blocks, and you keep getting better every single time out there. And not every fighter can say that, right? Like some fighters kind of get stuck. And one of the other things I love about you, and this kind of ties into every time I talk to you, I love the way that you flow. And you already mentioned flow twice, and I think that comes from the I know you did some Jeet Kune Do and Capoeira, and you have that background. Are you still like actively doing that? Where do you train, or is it kind of just more of like a mental flow? Like, how do you get into that mindset?
More of a mental flow at this point. It's been a while since I've done pure capoeira or pure Jeet Kune Do. Of course, you still see flashes of that in my fights, and of course, my pad holder Shane has some Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do uh, experience, and we throw some stuff into training. It may never see the light of day, but it's always still good to practice, keep practicing on the basics of any martial art, and they kind of flow, yet again, flow into each other. Um, uh, a lot of martial arts are very convergent with each other. They could be from opposite sides of the world, but there's still techniques that bridge the gap in between each other. So recognizing, okay, if I go for a low kick and he steps out of range, I can turn that into a side kick and immediately follow that up with a left hand or a left cross. And if he starts coming in a little closer, then being able to engage the clinch, or if he shoots in on me, being able to sprawl, immediately turning to the back, getting your hooks in. Um, not being caught up on any singular technique, just being able to express the body, the human body, in its purest form, just pure movement. You know, uh, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Let's talk a little bit about your upcoming opponent. You're facing a guy who kind of seems like a little bit of an enigma. Itzik Yakobov. He's from Israel. He made his debut in 2019 for Bellator and on the Israel event, and then hasn't fought since then in 4 years. I know that he's spent some time in the Israeli military, but now coming to the U.S. to fight and make his debut. What do you know about him? Kind of what's the game plan? Do you like what do you expect for a guy who hasn't fought in 4 years?
uh, I'm going into this fight very similar to my last one. Um, just expecting anything, and they're going to, or he's going to be looking at my footage and seeing um, this wild, crazy kid throwing capoeira kicks and question mark kicks and shooting from way downtown, shooting in for takedowns from
Yeah.
way out there. But you, I've been a lot more consistent, and I've been fighting much longer than he has. I have no idea about his amateur record or anything like that, because maybe there's no books on that in Israel. I'm not too sure, but I'm just going in there and expecting the unexpected. If I get taken down, or if he goes for a takedown, being able to counter that and go right back into what I'm doing, giving him no wasted movements, no wasted space. Giving him, I'm going to be fighting him in ranges that he's never experienced, and yeah, I'm excited to perform in front of a larger crowd as well, not just people in person, but on UFC Fight Pass as well. Um, but yeah, I'm just there to do my thing.
Yeah, let's talk a little about your gym. Immortal Martial Arts. You guys have been on an absolute tear. Of course, the ageless leader Matt Brown going out and
So
and just still being impressive in the
the
UFC
general.
and tying the knockout record for UFC. You've got Mark Coleman, and that was the other thing that stood out in your last fight to me. Mark Coleman, you could hear when Mark Coleman is cornering someone, you can hear him throughout, no matter how big the arena is, no matter how if he's mic'd,
Yeah.
whatever, you can hear him. And but you guys also have a bunch of young fighters. You have Cam Kinzig on the card as well, and some more fighters on the card, and also fighters that are I know you've been training a lot with Lucas Siebert,
Mhm.
if on the wrestling side, and he's on an absolute tear too. But what's the room like in the gym? And I know you guys also have some other some other people that come in. I know Jade Sheely a little bit comes in. I think I've seen Josiah Harrell up there. You guys have a
Jaden
pretty deep
Maddox stops in. Yeah.
yeah, you guys have a pretty deep room, and it seems like all the Columbus gyms are finally starting to like mesh together, and I think that you're getting a good look from some really really like high level fighters that, like I said, and a lot of them are fighting on this card, and a lot of them are also I think not too far from making that jump to the next level. But what's it like being in kind of that Shark Tank?
Um, just being surrounded by the legends and these, it's a different feeling. I've trained a lot of places, even going back home, and it's just every even Hawaii Elite and Kailua Gracie and UFC BJ Penn Gym. They're a bunch of savages as well, and I feel like we can attribute Immortals success being that we all, yet again, we all train with each other out here, and then we go out, we use what we have been training against other gyms and other fighters, and we bring it back and we say, okay, this works, this didn't work, and we kind of like, it's like a lab almost. We're creating a style of fighting that's really interesting. All of these fighters that come in here, we all take little pieces from each other and we incorporate it into our own game. And we don't have just strict strikers in here. We don't have just strict grapplers in here anymore. We don't have just brawlers. We have ultimate fighters. We have
Yeah.
well-rounded fighters. We have some of the most complete fighters out here, and very excited, not just for myself, but very excited for everybody else on the card, LFA 160 as well.
Yeah, and I also have seen Max Metzger has been up there too, and he's making his pro
Yeah.
debut on signed a multi-fight deal with Bellator, and he actually was on commentary for me with on your fight, and that's something that like I'm not a fighter, but I'm a fan first, and a guy who's just been around a lot of fights for a long time. So me saying something really doesn't mean anything. Him being in awe of you when he was impressed with the things that you were seeing, and it's interesting now like even I don't know if you guys trained much before that, but I know you've definitely trained since then. And it's interesting seeing like guys who train together, even seeing like, oh wow, like I'm impressed by what he's doing, and not just from like a, I'm excited. He's like, he seems to be he's a really cerebral guy, and like thinking about like, the studying the sport, and just being in awe of another fighter. So that was really cool to see like how he reacted to what you were doing in your fight. But last question. So, this event's in Kentucky in Owensboro, but the Ohio crew is going to be running deep in Kentucky. 9 fighters with Ohio ties on the card, and a few from your gym. I know other people that you train with. What's it like being on a card that's like this level of fight card, but also like a lot of fighters that you've probably either trained with, fought on the same card before, and just this amount of talent from the same area, going kind of out of state to compete on the same event.
It's almost feels like unreal. It's like almost like our team versus the world at that point, you know? Being able to share the room with everybody and also being able to be in that same venue and on the same card with all of these great fighters is just unreal. And uh, we always are constantly improving, constantly giving praises to each other, and yet again taking a step back and saying, hey, this might not work as good. So being able to watch all of my teammates on the same card is just unreal. It
Yeah.
really is unreal.
And I know, is there a fight kind of outside of your fight that you're like, man, I want to make sure that I can, if I get a chance to be able to be out in the arena and see it. Is there something that you're excited for outside of your fight?
I'm excited for them all. You know, Big Cam, Kinzig, Josiah, Mateo, Dylan Budka. He's fighting for the interim middleweight belt against a stud Russian. You know, so like and yeah, just super excited for everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I follow LFA pretty closely, and this is definitely one of the deepest fight cards they've had in a really long time. So I'm excited to be there and to watch it live. But yeah, man. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Big shout out to my team over here at Immortal Martial Arts, my friends over at Stout, Lucas Siebert, Miguel, my friends over at Ronin, Mad Max, Asher, um, my friends and family back home in Hawaii. You know, my training partners out there too, Hawaii Elite, Joe Bird, Kama, Kainoa, Alan Liu, and thanks to my sponsors, Aloha Beef Chips, Thrax, Immortal Coffee, and thank you, David. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to like not have to talk. I'm just to be able to sit back and
You're
enjoy
just
it.
you're
And
just gonna be here.
yeah, yeah. But
And
yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
you ever get those times where you're just like, hey, I don't even want to say anything. I just want to watch when you're back there.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like now you're interviewing me, but one of the first things that I tell people, because I do commentary with a lot of with new people for the first time, a lot of times is like, it doesn't have to be constant talking, right? Sometimes like let the picture speak, and that's one of the hardest things to learn, because people hear like the dead air and they want to like fill that dead air when they know they're supposed to be talking. But that's like that's a fine art is is talking and being able to find the right spots to be able to do that. But yeah, I try to do it, as much as I can, like when the time feels right. But yeah, it is interesting, and there are some fighters, and like I said, uh, you are truly one of my favorite fighters to watch because of the way that you fight. You're not going out there just looking for a knockout, just looking to try to wrestle somebody. You're looking to take, fighters say this all the time, take the fight where it goes. But I think that you have that like kind of almost innate ability to have that like fight feel, right? That like fight IQ of this, like it's some natural and some like trained, but of course, but the feel and just that like true fighter and true martial artist, and it is interesting, and that's the type of fights that I love. Like everyone loves the big knockouts and crazy submissions, but a guy who can like really put it all together, and that's like the type of fights that I like to see. So yeah, definitely check out Josh. UFC Fight Pass. I think the prelims are. I don't know where the prelims are. Either on Fight Pass. Sometimes they're on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, LFA 160. The best way to be able to make sure you see it is get there and get a ticket in Owensboro. It's not that far. If you're in Ohio, Hawaii might be a little bit of a trek. Hawaii's far. It's way further than you think it is.
I got some family members coming down too. I'll tell you that. I'm excited for
Yeah,
that. It's gonna be,
it's like
man,
yeah.
it's gonna be so loud. It's gonna be so loud.
I remember, when I got there, I was like, man, they make Hawaii and those maps in fifth grade look way closer to California than it actually is.
Yeah, it's in,
It's far. But
which island did you go to again? Maui.
yeah, I was on Maui.
Nice, Lahaina,
Yeah,
around there.
yeah. We
Nice,
stayed in
awesome.
Kihi. We went to Lahaina. We went out to Hana. That was awesome. That was amazing. Just anywhere. I mean, anything you do there is just incredible, especially if you're on vacation too. Like you're on that island time and just hanging out and just sitting at the beach and watching the sunsets and going hiking in Haleakala. Like that was amazing. Just everything. We went snorkeling. We did everything, and of course, like the biggest thing of being a guy from the mainland is like I want to go there and enjoy it, but also you want to respect the land and respect the people and as much as you can. And that's like kind of the hard thing to find that balance. But hopefully I did that. Hopefully, it's a beautiful place. Honestly, the most beautiful place I've ever been.
Hey,
So,
it
uh,
sounds like you did it right, man. Sounds like you did it
yeah,
right, and I'm happy that you were able to experience that as well.
yeah, it was incredible. It was definitely something I'd always wanted to do. And yeah, I mean, and just knowing a guy like you from Hawaii and seeing the way that the way that you kind of like you respect everything. And I think the people, I think the locals definitely respect like the land and traditions and things like that. And that's something that gets instilled from a young age, and that doesn't happen everywhere, unfortunately. So but yeah, it's amazing to see in an amazing place. And but yeah, like I said, we're still lucky that we're excited to have you in Ohio too. I know there's some beautiful parts of Ohio, but
Hawken
it,
Hills is pretty cool, and
I
when it's
know,
sunny
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. We're in like the mid 90s today, so it's a little warm, but yeah, this is the
No,
day where I'm like I want the
I'm
beach.
in my climate right now. This is
Yeah,
perfect.
this is the days where I'm like I would 90s is okay if you're by the water. You can just go take a dip in the water, cool off, but it's a little harder to find water in Ohio.
Yeah,
But
oh yeah, and even Allen Creek. I'm like, put my toes in there,
yeah,
maybe.
right. Thank you so much, man. Josh Perreira, the Flying Hawaiian, make your LFA debut on June 16th against Itzik Yakobov, and a fantastic fight card full of Ohio fighters, full of great fighters and up and comers. I mean, look at the amount of LFA vets that are in the big show, and I think I'm maybe talking to another one that we're going to see in the big show before too long. So thank you so much, and yeah, we'll see you down in Kentucky.
Thank you, David. Always an
Yep.
honor. Appreciate you,
Thanks.
my brother. Mahalo.
Yep.